What is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am an online fitness coach, and I've helped over 1,000 people transform their bodies over the last 10 years. And every single week, I do a Q&A on Mondays with my current clients. So I'm going to be going through in this video and talking about just the last 2, 3 weeks, some of the common questions that I've gotten and that we've dove into. So, first question that I'm going to go into today is cardio before or after lifting. What's most optimal? And guys, cardio after lifting is going to be what's most optimal for a few different reasons. Okay. The the cardio is going to affect your lifting more than the lifting is going to affect your cardio. Okay, so a good rule of thumb is, save the cardio for after you're lifting. And it's also it can be a good cool down as well after you lift weights. All right, so that's a pretty simple one. We'll go ahead and move on from that one. Um, this is a big one. So this is something we've even done a whole topic on in the past. But lean versus dirty bulking. What do you want to do? And there's been a lot of research that has come out recently that lean bulking, basically staying in a slight surplus, is going to yield just as good muscle gain as if you were in a dirty bulk, like in 1,000+ calorie surplus. Okay, so it's not necessary to be in such a big surplus. You're just going to put on extra fat, right? It's not going to help you add much more muscle, if that any more muscle at all, compared to lean bulking. So learn from my mistakes. To give you a quick story, I was that skinny kid, that 120-pound kid in high school, right? And then I wanted to put on size. I was in football, wanted to put on a bunch of muscle. So I went balls to the wall on just eating as much as I possibly could, but was in like a forever dream bulk for a couple of years. And sure, I put on like 50 pounds. So I went from like 120 to actually like 175, so like 55 pounds in the next couple of years. But a lot of that was fat, right? And then so it did make it harder for me to really get the physique that I wanted after that because I, had 20+% body fat, and it just made it so that, hey, I got to lose all this extra fat that I've gained, right? So learn from my mistakes, do it the smart way, have a strategic approach to your bulk. I feel like people they get so strategic and intentional about their cuts and they don't take the same approach with their bulking strategy, and it really should be a very similar approach, right? One of our clients, when we talked about this on our Q&A, shout out to Riley Owens. He's in more of kind of a lean bulk right now. And he was saying like, hey, it's actually even tougher in a bulk. People think it's like, all sunshine and rainbows being in a bulk, but you don't want to just put on fat. You don't want to just gain weight just to gain weight, right? And you also want to train really hard in the gym because if you're in that surplus, you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of that surplus and you're adding stimulus for your muscles to grow, right? So, um, you want a strategic approach and you don't want to just put on weight to put on weight. You want to put on good lean mass. And another thing that goes into that is getting body fat scans along the way to make sure that you're measuring that and you're only putting on lean mass and not putting on excess fat, right? So that's something we do with all our clients, super beneficial. So to sum all that up, yeah, just, lean bulking, you can put on a very similar, if not just as good amount of muscle without putting on excess fat. So we try to take a very strategic approach with our clients on that. Another question, and I get this very often as well. Are artificial sweeteners really bad? How should I approach artificial sweeteners in my diet? Guys, my rule of thumb is, 1 to 2 kind of like artificial sweetener type drinks a day. You're going to be totally fine. The research is out there that, most of the research that has shown where there's detrimental effects has been on mice, and it's, mice or rats, like lab rats, and it's been really large doses, right? So as long as you're doing this stuff in moderation, you should be totally fine, right? I would limit it, especially if you're someone that's trying to lean out and lose body fat as well, because there has been studies that shown, compared to just water or not having the artificial sweeteners, it does add a little bit of weight gain, right? Because there's other things that happen with your insulin and things like that. But guys, if you're doing it in moderation. Like I drink one Fresca a day just to add that little bit of sweetness, get a little bit of that carbonation, helps curb some sweet tooth, right? I'm a guy that has the sweet tooth, right? So if you're doing it that way and it gets you from not drinking regular soda, right, with all that extra sugar and calories, then it's going to be doing, more good than harm, right? But if you get drastic with it and you're someone like, hey, I have one, I gotta have another, and it just kind of snowballs and it's almost like an addiction to these artificial sweeteners and drinks and things like that, then I would just try to avoid it, right? Because it's kind of, you know, just like other sweets and how sugar can be addictive. Like if you have one and it gets you doing a lot, it's like, hey, maybe that's something that you don't have a whole lot of control over, and maybe it's something that you just want to cut out completely. So, but tip for the typical person, especially if you're doing it instead of regular sodas, I think, 1 to 2 a day, you're gonna be totally okay. So this one I made a post on recently, and this is something that I've dove into, and we make meal plans with all our clients, and it's just really good, useful information. But one of our clients asked about, hey, can you rank the proteins, right? Like different protein sources, like what's best, what's kind of S tier, right? What are maybe proteins that aren't as high quality, and just kind of dive into that. So I ranked it on a couple of different things. One is biological value, which is how efficiently and effectively the body can absorb and utilize proteins. Okay, so that's biological value of protein. And then just also went into basically my own personal preference and times during the day affects when you want certain proteins and things like that as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive into it. So I put at the very top of the list because of the biological value, whey protein. Whey protein, your body digests it, your body efficiently and effectively absorbs and utilizes this protein really well. So that's why we recommend after all our clients' workouts, they get their protein shake in right away. Okay. Your body is going to just soak it up basically after you've damaged all those muscle fibers. It's just going to start repairing immediately. So whey protein and specifically, we always recommend a whey protein isolate because there's just less filler. It's a higher quality protein. It's just going to be better overall. So whey protein isolates at the top of the list. Again, we want to get a lot of our proteins through regular food sources as well. So we usually recommend, 1 to 2 protein shakes a day, but it is a very high quality protein. Contrary to where a lot of people say is like protein shakes are garbage, it's just liquid and stuff like that. It's actually a very high quality protein. Whey protein is up there. It's the highest biological value. So egg white protein. Egg whites are great. And the thing about these is whole eggs are right after egg whites. So it goes egg whites, whole eggs as far as the biological value. Your body can efficiently and effectively utilize and absorb these proteins really well. And there's a lot of good nutrients in whole eggs as well. So I like to mix both of these together. This is like, obviously a lot of people have eggs for breakfast. That's my typical breakfast. Eggs and egg whites all mixed together, a good amount of it, right? To already like right after you wake up, you've been fasted to start getting that protein in and start repairing and recovering from the previous day after that long fast during the night. So egg whites, egg protein, really good for breakfast and other meals. Me and Herb always say like, hey, feel free to put the first meal that we got on your meal plan. You could eat it for dinner if you want, right? Like whole eggs and egg protein and egg whites. It's great protein, right? So you can have it throughout the day if you're someone that likes egg whites and eggs. Like, don't feel like you gotta have it for breakfast just because it's kind of a breakfast food, right? So this one's a little uh, controversial. Is milk, milk protein. Why it's controversial is because a lot of people are lactose intolerant. I would say I'm kind of in that boat where I can't tolerate lactose very well, especially if it's just straight milk, right? I actually can do yogurt pretty good, and that's something that I'm going to talk about here later on the list. But milk, we usually don't put it in our clients' meal plans, and a lot of our clients, it's weird. It's like probably I'm hearing maybe 25% plus people that come to us they do think they're lactose intolerant, right? So it can mess with your stomach. I don't suggest it like before workouts as well. It just doesn't really sit super well for a lot of people. But if you're someone that you feel like your body reacts well to milk and you have no issues in your gut or anything like that, it's a very high on the biological value protein source. So milk can be very good. It a lot of times too though can be high in fat and high in sugar depending on what fat content you're getting, like whole milk or skim milk, right? It's kind of like, if it's a skim milk, it's usually high in sugar, and if it's a whole milk, sure, you don't get the sugar, but it's very high in fat, obviously. So you kind of got to pick your poison, and we don't really put whole milk in many meal plans. So Next one is casein protein. This one's not talked about very often, but it is very high on the biological value. It's a good protein, and it's more slow digesting. So I used to actually drink casein protein like right before I went to bed. I don't anymore. I just don't think it's necessary because I'm gonna talk about another one right after this that I do that helps with that. But yeah, casein protein is a good protein. It's pretty high on the biological value. And again, it digests slowly. So if you're going to have casein, probably the best time to have it is at the end of the day. So leads right into this next one, beef. So like lean beefs. I like 93.7 lean ground beef for myself. And just like I said with the casein, it digests slower. So you can have it later in the day, and then your body's recovering and digesting that protein basically as you sleep. So that's a really good one. Chicken and turkey are kind of my go-tos throughout the day for lunches. It's a nice, good, lean protein source with those. We like to say you can switch berry for berry, you can switch bird for bird, right? So a little bit interchangeable. Gives our clients a little bit more flexibility with the meal plans, right? But those are good go-tos, good lean protein sources, pretty high in the biological value, everything like that. The next one is going to be fish. Okay, and fish it's a good protein source. Thing is, we found that like, you know, it's hard to prep fish. It takes a little bit longer to cook correctly. You can't store it as long. It kind of goes bad a little bit quicker than some of the other protein sources. So fish is a good protein, but it just seems like it's a little bit tougher sometimes to have in a meal plan. So some of the honorable mentions as far as like I like these for snacks. Like I mentioned before, Greek yogurt is a great one. Um, Again, if you're like super lactose intolerant, it might not sit well with you. But for me, for some reason, I can't really drink milk because of that. But Greek yogurt sits fine with me. So Greek yogurt's a good one. Cottage cheese is a good one as well. Good protein source and a good snack. So those are kind of the S tier to the bottom of the list and honorable mentions of the protein sources. And that's the bulk of the protein sources that we put in our clients' meal plans. So. Um, Next thing we're going to talk about, probably the last question here, and then we'll wrap this quick video up, is why undereating can lead to fat gain. Okay. And I think this is a huge misconception. You hear people just on social media, I think because it just sounds contradicting, so it kind of catches attention, right? But it's not that undereating is going to lead to weight gain. Like it's not like if you're in a calorie deficit for too long, then you're going to gain weight, right? It's just that's contrary to science. Don't believe people that are saying that. But the thing is, why people that tend to undereat and go drastic with their diets end up gaining weight is because, eating too little in the long run isn't going to be sustainable, right? And so your metabolism is going to start slowing down. You're going to get some muscle loss because you're being too drastic with the deficit. You're going to start getting some hormonal changes. It's going to throw your hunger hormones off and your hunger cues off, and it can lead to compensatory like eating behaviors and binging, right? So that's the most common thing we see. And I was talking with my clients when we did this Q&A and bringing up some examples. Sometimes people, we give them a meal plan, we put them in a strategic deficit, and they say, "Hey, I'm not hungry, so I'm going to eat even less." They think it's better to be even more in of a deficit, but that's not necessarily the best thing, right? Not just like, not always doing more in the gym is better, right? Sometimes there's diminishing returns. It's the same thing with a calorie deficit. So you don't want to just like starve yourself and like eat very little just because you're not hungry and you want to see results really quick, right? Sure, yeah, if you I lost 15 pounds, 20 pounds in a month, right? It sounds great, right? But if it doesn't set you up for long-term success and it's not sustainable and then you hit a plateau and you can't lose any more weight, then is it really doing you any good? No. So we like to strategically set up our clients so that you can have sustainable long-term results and you don't hit plateaus. And we're setting up your metabolism in the beginning so that, you don't see that kind of progress just start to plateau and maybe even stall out completely, right? We're not looking to get our clients just quick results and just like, hey, you lose 20 pounds in a month, right? It's like that's not what we're pushing. We want you to make this a lifestyle and we want to see you succeed, keep the weight off and continue to reach your goals over the rest of your life because this is a lifelong game, right? A lot of people, you see people do the same thing every year. They get a New Year's resolution, they see some results, they start to plateau, they hit some obstacles, and then they fall off and they do it every single year, right? Because they're not doing it the sustainable, correct, strategic way. All right. So sure, yeah, under eating tends to a lot of times lead to weight gain for a lot of people, but it's not for the reasons you would think. Okay. So those are the questions I'm going to go into on this one. I hope you guys found that valuable. We do this every single week with our clients. So if you're interested in being part of that, kind of gaining some more of this knowledge, well, first of all, make sure to like and subscribe because I'll make some more videos like this. But again, like we're just scratching the surface here, and we do this every single week with our clients with three group calls a week. So reach out if you're interested in that. Other than that, just keep watching these free videos. I don't care. But hope you got some value. Make sure to like and subscribe at the very least. Comment if you got any questions yourself. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Elevate. Only obligation is to tell it straight.